I wanted to do a video about the top 5 proofs of a young universe and just demonstrate that the universe is not 13.7 billion years old like people have said.
Oh man, I cannot wait for this because the universe is observably 13.8 billion years old. And since this is Matt Powell, he's only gonna have the highest grade of bullshit. Or is it the lowest grade? I have no fucking clue. If y'all wanna fuck around and find out what shitty pieces of evidence that Matt Powell has to prove that the universe is actually young, then please stay tuned. What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today, we're going to be analyzing regional dipshit extraordinaire, Matt Powell. I say regional because recently he got duped by Kent Hogan into moving to Alabama and wearing Hawaiian shirts. Oh, and he also works at Dinosaur Adventureland. Now, I want to preface this entire video by demonstrating that Matt Powell doesn't care about what's actually true. It's easy to claim this when he's spitting all the bullshit on his videos, but he recently said this on Kent's channel.
You say, oh, well, Dr. Hogan's a bad person. He's done some wrong things. Whether he's done wrong things or not, and I don't believe that he has, but even if he did, if he's still preaching the gospel and people are still getting saved, what's your problem? Shouldn't you be rejoicing?
Now, the context of that statement was Kent Hogan suplexing his wife. But when it comes to converting people, in this clip, Matt has explicitly stated that he doesn't care about truth, ethics, or even morality. To Matt, it literally doesn't matter if you land a people's elbow on your wife's forehead or you awkwardly hold your erect penis while you talk to women. He only ever cares if someone is leading people to Christ. As long as you're doing that, you can literally do anything, and Matt Powell is fine with it. At this point, which that's not to say that he didn't give us enough reason beforehand, but at this point, Matt Powell has given us enough reason to never consider anything that he says to be true. So anytime that he opens his mouth, more than likely, whatever he says is not going to be true. So Matt Powell has 5 pieces of evidence that's sure to convince us that the universe is young. Let's get started.
And the first reason that we know this is because of short period comets. Now, if you're not sure what those are, they are balls of ice that are floating about in space right now, and they deteriorate in less than 10,000 years. And so short period comets are all over our galaxy, all over the solar system, and they're going about in an orbit and they are deteriorating over time. And if our solar system was 4.5 billion years old, those things would not even exist. They would have completely deteriorated by now.
Well, typically for comets, the best way to gauge lifespan is through periods, not years. And a period would be the time that it takes for the comet to complete one orbit around the sun. And these comets usually last around 400 periods. And short period comets are called that because their period is less than 200 years. And Matt would be correct for comets whose period is about 5 to 10 years. But if you just look at a comet like Halley's Comet, whose period is 76 years, you'll quickly realize that everything that Matt Powell says is not true. The total lifespan of Halley's Comet is 30,400 years. So pretty much any short period comet whose period length is 25 years or more is gonna fuck Matt shit up. Also, the Kuiper Belt is the best source for these short period comets. The Kuiper Belt is a belt of meteorites, asteroids, stuff like that that's just beyond Neptune. And the only reason why comets from the Kuiper Belt deteriorate is because they get close to the sun. As long as they stay in the Kuiper Belt, then they'll never deteriorate. That's also why it's better to measure the lifespan of these short period comets by how many times they've completed a period. So Matt's first reason to believe in a young universe is not really a reason to believe at all. He doesn't care though, because if you're gullible enough to believe what he says and come to Christ, then that's all he cares about. All right, Matt, what's your next piece of evidence?
The second proof is simply the planet Pluto. Pluto is warm on the inside. Now, if Pluto was from 4.5 billion years ago, when it finally was created back then, it would be freezing cold on the inside. There's no way that something could just stay that warm for that long, for the course of 4.5 billion years. If you came to my house and saw a hot cup of coffee on the table, you would never assume that that cup of coffee was 4.5 billion years old. I'm sorry, it would have cooled off over the course of just 10 minutes. But people have no problem believing that things happen to stay warm for 4.5 billion years. It takes a lot of faith.
Alright, so the key to understanding why Pluto's core stays at about 1,000 Kelvin lies in the nature in which Pluto formed. Energy generated from rapid gravitational accretion of matter plus the radioactive decay of the materials in the core combined with the insulation surrounding the core keeps the core at about 1,000 Kelvin. And if you didn't know, there's actually a liquid ocean underneath the crust of Pluto, as far as that we can tell, because we see telltale signs of there being an ocean underneath the crust. But as far as what Matt is saying here, citation fucking needed on the whole idea that Pluto's core should have cooled by now. Comparing the core of a planet to your coffee sitting on the counter is laughable. Okay, if your coffee was insulated and radioactive enough in order to get to about 1,000 Kelvin and stay there, then yeah, Pluto's core is just like your coffee. But again, it's important to keep in mind that truth literally doesn't matter to Matt. Now, if only somebody could powerbomb this information into someone. No, even then I don't think somebody should believe this shit.
The third reason is the planet Saturn. I mean, Saturn's rings are unstable. Saturn's rings are actually dispersing right now as we speak, and before long, those rings will be completely gone. Now, if Saturn, the planet, and the rings around it were 4.5 billion years old, those rings would have completely dispersed and deteriorated by now. But they're still there, which means that they were created recently, not billions of years ago.
Well, he's right about one thing. Saturn's rings weren't there when the solar system formed 4.5 billion years ago. They did form quite recently. Except recently in this context is about 100 million years, and the deterioration of Saturn's rings still give it about 300 million years before they're gone. So I guess he's kind of half right about Saturn. Good job, I guess? But the whole idea that Saturn's rings prove a young universe only half-ass uses the science concerning Saturn's rings. Honestly, this entire video is gonna make me feel like somebody just performed a brain buster on me. Oh my god, Matt. Okay. Oh, so what's your next piece of shit?
The fourth reason is simply stars. Now, a star will die 1 per 25 years per galaxy. And so, if the galaxy was less than 10,000 years old, we would predict to only find about 200 dead stars in our galaxy. And sure enough, that's what we find. We find less than 200 dead stars in the galaxy. If you look at other galaxies, you'll only find about 200 dead stars in each galaxy, which means that if evolution were true and if the evolutionary timescale of billions of years was taking place, you would have hundreds of thousands of dead stars throughout the entire universe. The fact that you find only 200 dead stars per galaxy literally proves beyond any shadow of doubt that the galaxies, and our galaxy in particular, the Milky Way, is a young galaxy.
So I'm not completely sure where Matt is getting his numbers here. He doesn't have any citations at all, which is typical. So I really have no way of tracking it down, and Google searches aren't helping. The information that I did find from real astronomers has the birth and death rate of stars being at about 1 per year for each, which eventually turns into about 275 million stars that die and are born each year. So I'm not really sure where he's getting this number of 1 star death per 25 years. It really just seems like a made up figure. Just like the 200 dead stars in each galaxy thing. I don't know where in the fuck he gets that from. Of course, you gotta keep in mind this is coming from a guy who thinks the Confederates hunted pterodactyls. All just because he saw an image on the internet.
And the thing is, I do believe there was talk about these things. I believe if we study history, the Confederates were able to shoot pterodactyls, back in the Civil War, and they spread these things out. Anybody can look it up online. They spread these things out, and this is a historical fact. So, they spread this thing out, and it's got a huge wing length. And it's a pterodactyl they shot. So of course these things have been around. Now they went extinct, obviously, slowly, but surely. And so
the fact that he would just make up random numbers in order to prove his point really isn't all that surprising. So strike number 4 there, Matt. This is not going well, is it, bud?
Now the fifth and most powerful reason is actually the magnetic field of the Earth and other planets. See, magnetic fields are actually what keep our planets and keep the Earth in particular from being bombarded with space dust. If the magnetic field was too strong, we would die. If it's too weak, we would die. It has to be just right in order to protect us from issues from outer space or sunlight, deadly radiation coming through. And so the Earth's magnetic field in particular is very important, and it is vital to our survival.
Ugh. And if Matt just stopped right here, it wouldn't be that bad. He's actually got some really good information in this section. If only he would shut the fuck up at this point. It doesn't prove that the universe was young, but at least that would be the only thing that's wrong with what he's saying.
The half-life of the Earth's magnetic field is actually 1,400 years. And so what that means is that every 1,400 years, the Earth's magnetic field gets chopped in half. And so you can only lose so much before you've lost it all. And if the magnetic field gets too weak, like I said, the sun's rays will penetrate the Earth's atmosphere and kill everything on the Earth. With the half-life being only 1,400 years, you take that back, even 10,000 years. If you were to go beyond 10,000 years, the Earth's magnetic field would be so powerful that it would literally kill everything on Earth as well.
And this is where Matt Powell drives science. First, the term half-life can't really be used in reference to Earth's magnetic field. Typically, the notion of half-lives are only used for radioactive material. This is due to the decay rate of the radioactive material. Half of the radioactive material would be gone in a certain amount of time. And that's typically how we measure long time periods. But if you knew anything about Earth's magnetic field, you would know that this term literally can't apply to it. The Earth's magnetic field is generated by the liquid outer core flowing around the solid inner core. This flowing of liquid metal creates the magnetic field. So this idea that the magnetic field has a half-life is absurd. The source that Matt is pulling this from is Thomas Barnes's book called The Origin and Destiny of Earth's Magnetic Field. And of course, this fuck comes from the Institute for Creation Research. But more importantly, the source that Matt is using, Thomas Barnes, only uses a little bit more than 100 years worth of information in order to extrapolate this decaying magnetic field hypothesis. Barnes came up with this idea that the decay rate of the magnetic field is exponential. But that's not at all how the magnetic field operates. You see, geologists have a window to the past in the form of the North Atlantic Ridge. As the magma seeps out of the North Atlantic Ridge and cools, it has little magnetic particles in it that give the indication of the direction of the magnetic field, but also the strength of the magnetic field. This window to the past has shown us that the polarity of our magnetic field has swapped a number of times in the past. And every time leading up to a switch, there is a decrease in the strength of the magnetic field. Considering the fact that we are way overdue for a polarity switch, it makes sense that the magnetic field would be decreasing in strength right now. But due to the variable nature of the magnetic field, that means that it literally cannot be exponentially decreasing over time. Of course, none of this information really matters to Matt because it proves that he's just talking out of his ass. And nothing that he is saying is based on science. It's only based on the need to convert people to his type of creationism. The type of creationism that DDTs your ass into stupidity.
So, no matter how the evolutionists or atheists want to play this game of millions and billions of years, it's not going to go their way. Because truly, the facts are on our side. Observation is on our side. Everything that we see in the solar system actually demonstrates that the Earth and the universe and the galaxies, the entire world is young and was created recently and not billions of years ago.
Yeah, The facts that he fabricated in order to support his position will always be on his side. That's how fabricating shit works. As long as you lie about what your observations are, then your observations will always support your side. Simply put, he has not demonstrated in this entire video that the universe is young. He has only proven that he doesn't care what bad information he relays to his audience. As long as it's information that supports his religion, he will use it to convince others. That's why he claims that Confederates hunted pterodactyls, and it's also the reason why he's claiming all the bullshit that he claims in this video. You might as well chokeslam everybody into submission there, Matt, because nothing that you've said in this video should convince anybody, at least when you consider real science. That's gonna be it for me today. I appreciate you heathens watching this video. If you will, please go down below. Let me know what you think about Matt Powell's pieces of evidence. Do you think they're good, bad, horrible? Let me know down below. And hey, while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.